this carbon tax is just going to only serve to help collapse the economy. This is like how Klaus Schwab says, you'll own nothing and be happy.
Now this is where it's having to be, to where we're having to voice our own opinions however we can, peacefully and respectfully. But even that, out here and stuff like that, you would think that you would have support from government, from police, but we're not having any support.
We're here on the Trans-Canada Highway just west of Calgary at the Axe the Tax protest, a demonstration against the carbon tax. This is Robert Kraychik reporting for Rebel News.
Keep up the fight. Keep up the fight. This is across the country. Those of you that may see this, keep up the fight. We're on the right side of history.
We spoke with a bunch of demonstrators here, protesters, asked them what the rationale for being here is, and of course the most obvious is opposition to this increase in the carbon tax across the country. A lot of these protesters expressed concerns about the increased costs of living imposed upon all Canadians by this and a bunch of other taxes. A lot of them also shared anecdotes about people they're speaking with in their lives who are sharing more concerns, stresses, frustrations, challenges to meet basic financial needs given those endlessly increasing costs of living across the country imposed by these sorts of taxes and other sorts of regulatory and compliance costs. This demonstration began on April 1st. That was a Monday, and it's still running into today, which is a Sunday. They're not going anywhere, and a bunch of protests similar to this took place at different parts in the country on April 1st in opposition to this increase in the so-called carbon tax, which came into effect on that day. We were fortunate enough to speak with a bunch of protesters and demonstrators who were gracious with their time. We asked them why they were here, what they're doing, what they hope to accomplish. We have a petition related to this demonstration, stopthecarbontax.com. If you agree with that sentiment, visit the website, put down your name. Now, as far as the rationale, the motivation behind this protest, what's it all about? Why are you guys here? Why are you helping organize it?
Well, it's all about the carbon tax. The reason why I joined it is because that is something that can unite all Canadians. Everybody's going to suffer underneath it, and we've been hearing the stories for a month now, basically, and so for us, it's just to raise awareness, get more Canadians from all walks of life to kind of come together under this.
Well, it's just a federal overreach. Trudeau's gone way too far with his carbon tax and stealing from the people. He's got no right to do it.
I'm a believer in that we got to wake more people up in this country to realize that government shouldn't be taking over and dictating everything to us. We should have a voice, we should have opinions, and we should all be heard. It's getting to be scarier and scarier day by day out there to realize that people are living in poverty and you see all these tent cities going and stuff like that, like all over this place. It's just getting more and more crazy. So
it's just terrible what's going on out there, and it just keeps mounting, like bringing more immigration, making it harder for us. You can't say enough about everything that's going on. So I'm here because of all of that. And it began with, Trudeau and the NDP coalition bringing in measures that just made life tougher during COVID. And it seems like every week there's another mandate or another law. Like, we have no freedom left.
We're at this event today because it's already been very unaffordable for Canadians, and it's just getting more unaffordable for Canadians. And this tax is a hoax in my eyes, in many Canadians' eyes. It's not real. It's just to line Justin Trudeau and his minions' pockets. My generation of I was born in '89, so my generation, we can't afford housing. We are barely affording groceries, and at this rate, with the second tax put in of carbon tax, I don't know what future our children will have, and if we don't make a stand for this to be stopping.
So folks, one of the most interesting and fun parts of these sorts of protests is the generous donation in the food department. As you can see here, we've got a whole bunch of barbecue going on, and this isn't the first session either.
Well, as far as the tax is concerned, that's just another government grab. my feelings go back a long ways with government. They're here to control us. That's the feeling that I have. They're not here to support us and to give us a better way of life. We're actually going backwards. It's becoming much tougher now than what it was years ago. Like when I was a teenager compared to now, with my kids growing up, they're having a much tougher time. It's sure, they're making a lot more money, but we're paying way more on taxes. Taxes right from one end to the other, whether it's fuel taxes or whatever it is, right? So we're being taxed to death, and our government, they're hired by us to do a job for us, but yet they're working against us.
I'm here with two concerned Canadians here at this Axe the Tax protest, Sukhpal and Crazy Chris. So gentlemen, why don't you share with our audience why it is that you're here, what this protest is about, and what's your motivation for attending?
Oh, well, clearly, Axe the Tax is a no-brainer. We're both drivers, so we make our living on the road. Suk is owner-operator, so it affects him even more, where he's having to pay extra taxes on top of his fuel bills and anytime he gets maintenance on his truck or anything like that. And it's the more you tax us, it's not just a carbon tax, and we know that. It's a scam. We know it's a scam. You cannot tax your way into a climate change. And so for us to come here and support those guys that are spending the nights here, I can't. We work. But to come here and show support for the people that are willing to make the sacrifice every day, and all night, is the least we can do.
And how about you, Sukhpal?
Yeah, that's pretty hard to live with these tax increases, and so we have to come and protest our views up there.
When we were younger, we had a lot of freedoms. We were able to go to a lake. You didn't have to pay to go and look at the lake. You were able to go fishing. You didn't have to have a barbless hook. We could go out and play. Our parents would send us out for the weekend and wonder where we are. They weren't concerned. Now, everything we do is regulated, and we have way less freedoms. And the freedoms that we've lost, a lot of the younger people don't see it because they're desensitized.
Folks, one more thing I want to share with you, some noteworthy occurrence is what was described by former Mayor Jim Watson in Ottawa during the Freedom Convoy as disturbing. He said bouncy castles with kids playing in them, as you can see behind me, was some sort of disturbing problem. Now, I want you folks to bear in mind that very often these sorts of demonstrations, freedom-minded, those that are critical of the government apparatus of control, right-wing, conservative, whatever you want to call it, is often derided as extremism by the usual suspects. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, subservient news media outlets like the CBC, so-called experts, and again, I invite you to consider the extremism behind me. I want to share with you folks some more examples of extremism that may be very alarming, so beware. We've got Connect 4, an oversized sort of novelty version of that. And also behind me, we've got Mini Putt here. One common thing that keeps coming up in this demonstration and others that I've attended of a similar sort of philosophical, political wavelength is that many people describe themselves, or at least people they know, as having a sort of awakening or wake-up moment in the context of what I call the COVID-19 enterprise. Basically, the aggressiveness of governmental control, impositions, violations of constitutional freedoms in the context of those few years was jarring to people who had previously either not really paid attention to politics or even in some cases subscribed to a sort of opposing left-wing point of view in support of centralized control. In other words, the past few years have really been a major changing moment on a political, philosophical, and ideological wavelength for many people.
Sheldon has 5 siblings. There was 4 that were there that day with Sheldon. His dad passed away in June 2020. We weren't allowed to go in and see him before he died. He was only allowed 2 visitors, and one at a time. He was actively dying. He had 2 different types of cancer. After he passed away the next morning, we were all allowed in there with no masks. And it just took away part of the grieving process for the entire family. You know, when you can't hug your loved one goodbye, knowing that his death is imminent is really hard.
Yeah, it was really hard on my mother. She wanted us in there. She's really about family and stuff, but she wasn't allowed to bring us in. Still bothers her to this day.
Now, the fact that we're talking about these abusive restrictions on access to dying, grieving, ailing family members, that obviously connects to this. And maybe you folks want to share some remarks about how that connects to this demonstration.
Well, it's not the Canadian way that I grew up. We had lots of rights. Now, obviously, we don't. If you can't go see your loved ones, you're told that, you know, that you're a problem. That ain't right.
And I think that is what kind of started this for a whole lot of people was COVID. You know, there was lots of us that were thinking about how things were going in a downward spiral before COVID, but COVID just exploded everything and so many people woke up. And I really think that we know that the vast majority of Canadians think the same way that we think, and if we could all just stand up at once, it would be game over.
April 1st, the 23% increase, which of course gets taxed after. I know my mom, she still lives in the original, the family home, and she's worried about having to remortgage at some point, and I don't think she could even afford a care home right now if things came down to it. All of my family, all my friends, everybody's suffering under it. Doesn't matter what political affiliation or where you come from, what your beliefs are. This is something, even I'm one of the liaisons too. I speak to the police officers here. I've been keeping the really good communication going with them. They've also told me that they do not like this carbon tax.
So one thing I've been asking other demonstrators is whether or not they're experiencing or observing more financial hardship in recent years with people that they know and love and care about than in years prior. Is that something that you're hearing about? Do friends and family, coworkers of yours talk to you more often than before about struggling to make ends meet? Is that something that's in your awareness?
Oh, absolutely. I've actually experienced it myself from whistleblowing in COVID from 2020, right? So I see that when you speak against the government or you don't have the right belief system, they come after you.
Everywhere things just seem to be escalating more and more. I've driven all the way across provinces and I've seen it in BC, I've seen it in Saskatchewan, I've seen it in Alberta. Everywhere you go, you're seeing more and more poverty popping up.
So is it fair to say that what I call the COVID-19 enterprise was a wake-up for you?
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, you know, when I was young, our goal in life was to get a job, go out and buy a house. And at that time, you could literally do that. Nowadays, I see young people struggling to work and just feed themselves. They have no hope of owning a home. So that's a major change in 1 or 2 generations.
You also told me that part of the goal here is to wake people up, to use your phrase. Now, in your experience, people that you talk to, people you know and meet, are you seeing more people wake up and become aware of these things that you're speaking of than in years in the past? Are we moving in the right direction in terms of public awareness?
I think we are, but very slowly. A lot of people talk about it, but they don't come out and get involved. I mean, to me, we have to make ourselves visible so that the politicians can see the people won't take this much longer. So we need more community involvement in coming to things like this, speaking our mind, and letting the politicians know we've had enough.
For me, it feels like home because Ottawa became home to us for 8 months after everything for COVID. Hearing all the horns and all of the support is so uplifting. It is so encouraging to see that there are still people who are supportive, who still understand what's going on, and we're all showing that there's still unity across the country. And the vibe here has been very much like the convoy, very much in unity, very friendly. There's literally like free food and games for the kids here. It's very family oriented is how I feel about the event.
The carbon tax, I don't know why, it's kind of a scam. But the thing is, the carbon tax, why we have a carbon or taxes, like we have a lot of forest up here, but still we need to, why we are paying taxes on the way they are doing. This is kind of scam. So
Just in our community, a lot of small businesses had to close with the COVID lockdowns, and tragically, some of them haven't come back. So not only are the businesses gone, but the jobs are gone, and I think it's a plan to literally destroy small business and destroy the middle class.
Okay, folks.
People are scared to even participate for any kind of repercussion. That might lose their job, or there's all kinds of things. People are scared.
This carbon tax is just going to only serve to help collapse the economy. This is like how Klaus Schwab says you'll own nothing and be happy. When you look at the COVID pandemic, the way that it was implemented, it was actually designed to destroy the economy. You can see the inflation going up, the prices of everything. They started printing money like crazy. They locked things down. They killed small businesses. This is how you destroy economies. And this is just another step in that direction. And if they destroy Alberta, they'll wipe out Canada.
Now this is where it's having to be, to where we're having to voice our own opinions however we can, peacefully and respectfully. But even that, out here and stuff like that, you would think that you would have support from government, from police, but we're not having any support.
Trudeau needs to resign. Let alone, like, axing the tax at this point is not going to save him. We know he's done. He has destroyed not just morale in this country, finances. We're the laughing stock around the world. And when people talk about Canada, we're a laughing stock, where we used to be the place to be. And now people want to be anywhere but here.
I woke up when the truckers went to Ottawa. It was actually the mainstream media that woke me up. Trucking runs in my family. My father was a trucker. I've got brothers who are truckers, cousins, uncles, aunts. And a friend of mine, she just said, like, hey, we're going to have a rally in Kelowna. I'm from Kelowna. She said, well, let's go support the truckers. And I had never seen so much love and Canadian flags. And we were there for hours. And we walked around with our signs. And that evening I went home and I turned on the news, and all that was being told was that misogynists, racists, anti-science, anti-vaxxers, small fringe minority, and it went against everything I'd seen that day. So that was my big epiphany. I woke up that day and I did a 180 and had to eat a lot of humble pie and make a lot of apologies, but no, I'm glad to be where I am today.
This is not the Canada that I grew up in. I don't even recognize this. This looks more like China than anything else. And so people are beginning to realize I can't afford my food. I can't afford my groceries. I can't afford my rent. Look at all the tent cities that are going up like crazy, and the homelessness, and then being able to buy drugs like candy in Vancouver. Like, this is insane.
Having support by driving by and honking is a good thing, but come in here, come and talk to other people, come and talk to some other people's lives as to how it's devastated them. It's hard.
Keep up the fight. Keep up the fight. This is across the country. Those of you that may see this, keep up the fight. We're on the right side of history. Suk and I have known each other a long time, and I'm proud to stand here with him as a fellow supporter and to show Trudeau that we're not just a bunch of asshole racists.
You never saw homelessness like this in Canada before, right? Like, it was too cold. Most places, they would give you welfare. You get a little place, it might suck, or they had homeless shelters. But now you're seeing tent cities in places like Edmonton and Calgary where it's way too cold for doing that, right? Yeah, it's out of control.
Folks, if you think Stop the Carbon Tax makes sense, visit our website, stopthecarbontax.com. We're going to deliver that petition, hopefully with your name on it, to the office of Stephen Guilbeault.